To answer this next request, we were helped by our friend Hal Linker, the well-known globetrotter and television personality. He flew some 7,000 miles to reach his destination, from Hollywood to Vancouver, across the Aleutian Islands, a stopover at Cole Bay, and then on to Tokyo, and finally by train to the city of Toba. Now, Robert Hubbard of East Point, Georgia, you asked for it. You asked us to visit a Japanese pearl farm. You wanted us to actually take you aboard one of those boats to witness the pearl divers in action, close up. Our mission is accomplished, so seen here on film, some 10,000 miles away from your home in Georgia, is Hal Linker.
Hal Linker speaking to you from Toba, Japan, where we're visiting the Mikimoto Pearl Farm to see where some of the world's fine cultured pearls come from. Just a moment, here are some young ladies. どういう仕事をしていますか?
私は三木本真珠養殖場の真珠貝を採集しています。
Oh, that's interesting. She says that she is one of the young ladies who dives for pearl oysters here at the Mikimoto Pearl Farm. I'd like to go along and see what actually happens here. So let's go to see what pearl diving is like.
In a moment, you'll hear Hal Linker speaking directly to you from aboard that pearl diving boat. He and his crew were busy setting up their sound equipment for this journey as they moved out to open water beyond these pearl oyster beds. This glass faceplate is used by all the girls. She's rubbing it with tobacco to keep body heat from fogging it while underwater. As soon as Hal helps her, he'll pick up his microphone to give you an on-the-spot report. This next voice is Hal Linker's.
It's really quite an experience to be on this Japanese pearl boat where the girls are getting ready to dive for pearl oysters. They tie their buckets to their waist with a long cord. This cord helps them to identify their own bucket and at the same time gives them an emergency lifeline in case something goes wrong. Now, the girls are diving in the water. The water is wonderfully clear, and I hope that you're able to see just how clear the water is as the girls begin to dive, and you can see them going down to almost 15 feet in depth. Now, the pearl oyster diving profession here in Japan has been sort of monopolized by the women. They say women make the better divers. They can stay down longer, have greater endurance. After a little while, you see the pearl oysters beginning to gather in the buckets. They wear white to protect themselves from getting chilled from staying in the water too long. Some of these girls started diving at 14 years of age. Now, the oysters that they gather are brought into the pearl factory. And here I discovered that one oyster has to be sacrificed so that another oyster can be made to produce pearls. They take an oyster and cut a living segment out of it. And this segment is all they use from this oyster. It's then discarded. The segment is cut into small strips. Now, a second oyster is then taken, and into this second oyster, they place a little piece of that living tissue from the first oyster. And on top of this, they put a nucleus, which is made from clamshells from the Mississippi Valley. Sometimes they put two sections of living tissue into the oyster and two of these pieces of clamshell from the Mississippi Valley. They're then ready to produce pearls. They're put into these pearl beds where they're allowed to remain for from 4 to 6 years immersed in water right outside the pearl factory. After 4 to 6 years, they're pulled up again, and nature has provided cultured pearls which the oyster has built around that nucleus. Now, these pearls have to be sorted. They're first sorted according to size. Then they're sorted according to color and shape. Holes are then drilled into the pearls so they can be formed into necklaces. Finally, necklaces are made, and these wonderful Japanese cultured pearl necklaces adorn beautiful girls all over the world. But it all began here on Ago Bay, where the pearl oyster divers bring up the original oysters in which the pearls are made to grow. Before I leave Ago Bay and the Mikimoto Pearl Farm, I'd like to say goodbye to the girls. Sayonara, minasama. Sayonara.